Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly break down how Diego Simeone won the tactical battle over Jurgen Klopp to help Atletico Madrid win their first leg Champions League Round of 16 tie against Liverpool 1-0. But before we do that, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel on our road to 3K subscribers. When we break down the game and we do look at the board, we have Liverpool in a 4-3-3 and we have Atletico Madrid in a 4-4-2 as expected. Atletico Madrid drop off deeper in those two banks, and the key talking point here was how Atletico Madrid stifled Liverpool. When we do look at it, we expect the midfield and the defensive banks to be narrow, and what you end up seeing here is that you have the wider players tucking into those central positions to clog out the spaces in between the central midfielders, and when the ball is shifted out into the wider area, for instance, if it does shift out into the path of Robertson, you'll have Koke shift out to close him down, and then that midfield bank will move across in sequence to that side of the pitch to ensure that they remain compact. But the big issue that Liverpool did encounter here was the fact that their front three was very narrow. You had Salah often ahead of Lodi, and you had Sadio Mane ahead of Versalco, leaving Firmino in between the center backs Savage and Felipe. So if you have those players in narrow positions and you have Atletico Madrid clogging out passing lanes and compressing the space in between the lines, you have to question where Liverpool are going to get their attacking chances. You would assume that it would be out in the wider areas. What we ended up seeing was Alexander-Arnold was pushing forward to peg back Lamar. So that was one way that you could end up seeing Liverpool find an avenue towards goal. But there were times where we did see Salah shift out into the path of Felipe, and that would allow Lamar to stay narrow and have Lodi push out into the path of Alexander-Arnold if he did get on the ball. We didn't see enough of Alexander-Arnold, and when we look to the left-hand side, Robertson adopted a deeper position in that left-back role. So Koke wasn't too worried about shifting out into that position, and like I said, Mane was often ahead of Versalco, and on the rare occasion, he would shift out into Savage. So that was one of the issues that Liverpool had. They did have their attacking players a bit too narrow, and frankly, they possibly could have benefited from Mane or Salah hugging the touchline to receive the ball and then looking to stretch the play there. Firmino was interesting because he did adopt a space in between the center backs, but there were times where he did look to drop off deeper to try and get on the ball as expected, and you would think that would cause Atletico Madrid some problems because without the ball, you have that 3v2 in midfield, but Morata and Correa did a very good job of ensuring that Fabinho was taken out of the game, and towards the end of that first half, we ended up seeing Fabinho shift out to either side of Joe Gomez or Van Dijk to get on the ball so that he can look to push Liverpool forward. That didn't really work out in his favor, but it was an option that we did see Fabinho take. So with Fabinho taken out of the game by the two central forwards, you end up having a midfield battle of Wijnaldum against Thomas Partey, and you see Saul against Henderson. So if Firmino drops in between those two central midfielders, you do have 3v2, but what was interesting here was that Atletico Madrid were able to cope with that threat. And the reason why Atletico were comfortable with that threat was based off the variations of Liverpool's midfield movement. We would see Wijnaldum dropping off a bit deeper at times to get on the ball, and the issue here is that you could have Correa step out into the path of Wijnaldum, and if Correa does step out into the path of Wijnaldum, that simply does leave Morata with Fabinho, and if Firmino drops off, you can't have Thomas Partey step into that zone. So that's one way you could think about it. If you don't have Correa stepping out into the path of Wijnaldum, what you could also see here is that we had Koke step out into the path of Wijnaldum, Versalco push forward into the path of Robertson, and then Savage would pick up Mane, and that's how they did look to close down in that brief spell. And the other option would be for Wijnaldum to drop off a bit deeper, Thomas Partey not worrying about his positioning in those zones, and then Thomas stepping to Firmino with Saul on Henderson, and then if the ball gets shifted out to Wijnaldum, they work across the pitch like that. And that often was the theme in Atletico's play. If Wijnaldum did get on the ball and he looked to step forward, we would have Thomas Partey step into the path of Wijnaldum, and then simply have Saul shift over to close down that passing lane into Firmino. There They're worried about Firmino opposed to those deep-lying Liverpool midfielders because they know that they don't have the passing range to play in between those lines and get the ball into the front three. And a lot of that was down to their limitations, but also Atletico's good shape. On the other side, we did see something different from Henderson. Henderson would look to push forward, and there was a specific period where it did look like Liverpool were 4-2-4 because you had Wijnaldum dropping off a bit deeper, and you had Henderson shifting into the path of Lodi with Salah shifting over into the path of Felipe. The problem here is that if they do have Henderson shifting out into that advanced role, once again, even if Firmino does drop off, they're able to cope with that threat because then you have Thomas Partey stepping into the path of Wijnaldum, and then Saul can't shift across to close down Firmino. So Firmino didn't really harm Atletico when he dropped off into those deeper positions, but Atletico Madrid and Diego Simeone deserve credit for their ability to cope with that threat. And when we go back to Henderson, if he does push off a bit higher to occupy Lodi, or let's say he occupies Felipe, what we end up seeing here is that it does leave Wijnaldum and Fabinho in those deeper positions. And the issue with that is the fact that now you could have Correa and Morata stepping into the path of those two midfielders. Atletico don't really fear the threat of Joe Gomez or Van Dijk because Van Dijk can't play balls over the top. They were able to close out the wider areas if diagonals were played, and Van Dijk and Gomez aren't renowned for playing defensive line splitting passes. So when you really look at it, that eventually leaves Thomas Partey and it also leaves Saul free of their defensive duties, and it allows Atletico to remain more compact in that center of the pitch. And if you do have Liverpool's front three shifting into those central areas with Wijnaldum and Fabinho deeper, then you can have Saul and Thomas Partey shift across the pitch to help out and clear the danger. So that was how Atletico Madrid's shape caused Liverpool problems. Frankly, like I said, Liverpool a bit too narrow. We didn't see much varied movement from Mane or Salah because we did have that narrow, compact two banks of four. There was no real space for Mane to dart in between Vrsaljko or Savic, and the same goes for Salah, who could look to dart in between Lodi and Felipe. Firmino struggled because there was no space between the lines and he couldn't drop off into midfield because Atletico were able to shift markers across the pitch. And if you look into those wider areas, like I said, Alexander-Arnold was stifled down that right-hand side, and we didn't see much of Robertson, who ironically did get into their best position in that first half. But like I said, if the ball is shifted out to him, then you can have Koke looking to close him down. And Atletico Madrid were flawless, but a lot of it does go to Liverpool's lack of variety and their inability to stretch the pitch when you have Salah and Mane, who can hug the touchline, stretch out Atletico Madrid's shape, and then possibly run at their markers. And even if they don't do that, you can have Salah and Mane shifting out into those touchline roles, and that creates space for Wijnaldum and Henderson to possibly push forward to try and get into the box. However, when we look to Atletico Madrid, we can say that they did have a clear tactical route to goal. It's difficult to determine whether it was a definitive ploy from Simeone based off the fact that Atletico did take the lead early on. Nonetheless, it was effective. And what we ended up seeing from those attacking moves is that we often had cross-field passes into the path of Lodi, who was running off Mo Salah to attack Trent Alexander-Arnold. And the reason why that is an intelligent decision by Simeone is based off the fact that when you break down that Liverpool back four, you have Mane, who does do a good job of tracking back, and even if Robertson is bypassed, Virgil van Dijk is a reliable cover man for the Liverpool left back. Whereas when we look to the right side of the pitch, Joe Gomez isn't as reliable as Van Dijk and he isn't as good a defender. And when you look at Gomez and Alexander-Arnold defensively, you do feel like you can get the better of them because Gomez and Alexander-Arnold are still young. Gomez is renowned for making defensive mistakes, and what you end up seeing here is that Alexander-Arnold isn't the best 1v1 defender. In the build-up to Atletico Madrid's opener, we ended up seeing Saul switch the ball out to Lodi, and Lodi was able to beat Alexander-Arnold out wide and deliver a cross into the box for Morata, but Van Dijk did a very good job of clearing the ball out for a throw-in. And even when we look to that throw-in, Vrsaljko and Koke combined, and Vrsaljko was able to deliver a cross into the box. It wasn't a very good one, but Van Dijk should clear his lines, but instead he does concede a corner kick that Atletico Madrid eventually convert from. And when we look to another example, we end up seeing Morata switching the ball out into the left channel as Atletico Madrid did look to break. And once again, Lodi did run off Salah to get the ball before Trent Alexander-Arnold. Lodi does navigate Lamar running across Gomez, but when he plays the ball into Lamar, it does go behind him, but we end up seeing Correa get there before Van Dijk to play the ball back to the Atletico left back. And what we end up seeing there is that Alexander-Arnold doesn't close down the cross, and with Lamar in between Gomez and Van Dijk, what we end up seeing from Lodi is he delivers a quality cross in between the two Liverpool center backs for Koke darting in between Robertson and Van Dijk, but it just evades Koke, and Robertson desperately clears it away for a corner kick before Morata can get a free opportunity at the back post. But although Atletico's chances did come far and few, what we ended up seeing was that they were getting Lodi forward beyond Salah, and he was making the difference by delivering quality crosses into the box to test that Liverpool backline. And when we look at the best chance of that first half, once again it stems through Atletico Madrid playing a bit more direct, and it starts with Gomez looking to push forward, trying to find Alexander-Arnold in an advanced right back zone. But when he tries to play that pass into Alexander-Arnold, Thomas Lemar does get across to intervene. Lemar does look to push forward down that left channel, but with Henderson coming across and Alexander-Arnold recovering his run, we end up seeing Lemar drop the ball off back into the path of Thomas Partey, who is free in that midfield zone around half. And as he looks to step towards the halfway line, we do see Wijnaldum push forward, but when Wijnaldum steps into the path of Thomas Partey, Partey clips a long ball over Van Dijk and Fabinho trying to connect with Koke, and Van Dijk does nod the ball into the path of Morata looking to break into left half space. So Morata picks up the ball in left half space, and Fabinho does well to get across, but Morata is able to cut across him, and he's 1v1 with Alisson at the edge of the 6-yard box, but he can't beat the Brazilian goalkeeper. But in that sequence, we see another Virgil van Dijk mistake in that first half around the Liverpool box, and a Koke run in behind the Liverpool backline, and frankly, Atletico Madrid should have been up 2-0 there. But besides that, Atletico Madrid struggled to get back into Liverpool's half based off the fact that when they looked to get the balls into Correa and Morata and Correa did a very good job holding up the ball with their back to goal. Morata did win some fouls and he did link play, but when it came to them trying to play forward passes to ignite the break, they struggled to connect with teammates and they consistently gave the ball back to Liverpool. But going into halftime, we're expecting a tactical change from Jurgen Klopp based off the issues that Liverpool encountered in that first half. They were struggling to create chances, they were looking to play a bit too narrow, and that played into Atletico Madrid's hands. And frankly, Atletico's threat down the left-hand side did see them get into good positions, and Klopp had to do something to try and ensure that Atletico couldn't continue to exploit that side of the pitch. But when we looked at the second half, we didn't see much of a tactical shift from Klopp. We did see him bring on Divock Origi for Sadio Mane with fear that Mane could get sent off, but we didn't see any difference in Origi's positioning as he did continue to stay narrow ahead of Versalco. Whereas when we look to Simeone, he was forced to bring on Marcos Llorente for Thomas Lemar, which did see Atletico Madrid now have 4 central midfielders in that midfield bank. It did help Atletico Madrid based on the fact that we didn't have Robertson pushing forward, so Llorente could help them stay compact in that central area, and like I said, if Robertson pushes forward, he can easily shift out, whereas Koke moved to the left-hand side, and he was ensuring that Alexander-Arnold wasn't able to cause a threat down that side. So when you really do look at it, they're able to stay compact in midfield. They have the discipline to ensure that it is 2v2 out in the wider areas, and if you had Origi or Salah shifting out into that touchline position, we had Koke and Llorente dropping off to protect the fullbacks and ensure that it was 1v2. Nevertheless, we did see Liverpool create their best chance in the game minutes into that second half. We had Robertson slide the ball to Fabinho ahead of the Atletico Madrid forwards, and what we ended up seeing here was Fabinho slide the ball across Morata into Joe Gomez, who did look to push forward into Liverpool's half. So when we had Gomez in Liverpool's half, what we can see across the pitch is that we have Alexander-Arnold very high, pegging back Koke. We have Lodi narrow, and we also see Firmino shifting ahead of him, and we have have Henderson dropping off a bit deeper to occupy that deep central narrow position in that right channel. So when Gomez does look to step forward, he's also able to see Van Dijk in between the center backs, and he has Origi ensuring that Vrsaljko can't shift in. So when Gomez looks up, he locates Salah making a deep run in between Felipe and Vrsaljko, and he delivers that cross to that back post, and Salah breaks free, but he nods his effort wide of the net. That was Liverpool's best chance in that game, and we see how they're able to stretch the pitch with Alexander-Arnold pulling away Koke, and you also have Origi ensuring that Vrsaljko can't shift over. But with Van Dijk occupying both center backs, that gap is open for Salah, and when he gets into that position, he has to hit the target. Atletico continued to harm Liverpool down that left-hand side, and Morata wasted another golden opportunity to put them up 2-0. We had Felipe clip the ball over the Liverpool backline that was looking to push up, and we ended up seeing Lodi get in behind Trent Alexander-Arnold, and when he pushed into that left channel, he was able to pull the ball back in between Gomez and Alexander-Arnold. We have Correa darting into the box, so he does pull out Van Dijk, and that leaves Morata free in the box with Robertson looking to recover his run, and Morata does hesitate, and then he miskicks his effort when he should be testing and beating Alisson from that position. When you break down that game as a whole, Simeone won the tactical battle here. They found a weakness in Liverpool's backline by attacking down that left-hand side. They took the lead early, and they continued to create chances in spells during that left-hand side, despite being very poor with their transitional play. And from a defensive aspect, they were deep, they were narrow, they were organized and disciplined, they helped each other out in midfield, and they stifled Liverpool's attack, holding them to 0 shots on target, which epitomizes how successful their plan was. But let me know what you guys think. Are Atletico Madrid now favorites to advance to the quarterfinal? And do you think Klopp was wrong here? And how do you think he can change his tactics to bypass this Atletico Madrid defense? Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And once again, if you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.